The new year brings city elections. You name it, the office is up for grabs. State Senator Jessica Ramos wants to be mayor, and Anthony Weiner is dipping his toes into a possible city council race. The Point starts right now. Senator Jessica Ramos is one of a number of Democrats who think the clock has run out on the Adams administration. So I need to ask you, it's a crowded Democratic field, Senator. How will you differentiate yourself from all the others who want the job?
Thanks for having me on your show, Marcia. You know, I'm obviously the only woman running for mayor this year, and that certainly differentiates me from everyone else in the field. But what really sets me apart is my record. I am not just a fighter for working families in New York. I've actually fought and won. I'm the senator who has raised the minimum wage, and by the way, it's gone up this month because now the minimum wage should go up every year. I am the state senator that has championed expanding child care affordability and so many other things. But it's been heartbreaking to see how much trust has been lost in our city hall because of its mismanagement and the corruption that's taking place.
I think I need to ask you this, though. I think one of the lessons of the presidential election has been that people want a mayor who will make the city more affordable so that they don't feel that they have to leave. How would you do that? Well,
I think there's a lot a mayor can do to make sure that our city is much easier to live in. And for starters, of course, there's the housing crisis that we've been in for a very long time, even before the pandemic.
There is the city of yes.
There is the city of yes.
80,000 new units.
Well, 80,000 units are not going to get us out of the pickle we're in. We actually project that over the next 10 years, we're going to need to build at least 600,000 affordable housing units, not to mention the regular market rate units.
How are you going to do it if you're mayor?
Well, bringing together the construction unions that do the actual work, the tenants who want to be able to afford to live in our city, and even the landlords who are going to be able to make this possible. The city of yes shouldn't be the end point for our housing agenda. We need to be able to actually support every single New Yorker in providing housing where possible. Obviously, the city plays a very important role in fomenting that and making sure that we are doing so creatively. But part of it's also property tax reform so that developers and landowners can feel like the city is actually incentivizing them to build that affordable housing in the pockets of the city where they're needed most.
So what kind of property reform do you think is necessary, property tax reform?
Well, right now the city isn't in compliance with the existing law, and it hasn't been for many years. So right now, someone who lives in Washington, in Jackson Heights like me, is paying $5,000 a year through our rent versus someone who owns a brownstone in Park Slope and only pays about $3,000 a year in property tax. That's not okay, and that actually hinders the development of housing.
People who have run for mayor, including former Mayor Bill de Blasio, who ran in 2013 and promised property tax reform and was never able to do it. So what makes you think if you were elected that you would be able to do it? It's sort of like the third rail that nobody wants to touch.
I know, and there's been several lawsuits to that effect, and I think we're actually going to see some advocacy at the state level in this coming legislative session. But here at home in the city, the mayor actually is able to direct the Department of Finance to conduct uniform property value assessments that have not been taking place.
It sounds like there's going to be a lot of people screaming when their tax bills go up.
Well, it's actually most of us who are paying much more than we should.
So do you think that that's something that's actually doable, that you can actually get a tax reform package passed by the city council, given the fact that there's going to be a lot of people in the city council whose constituents are going to say, don't do it to me?
Well, I think this is about uniformity, and I know that a lot of council members are going to want to help me in order to deliver some tax relief for our neighbors. But ultimately, it really is about the Department of Finance empowering the agency to do what they need to do in order to comply with the law.
You know, crime is also a really big issue in terms of prosperity in the city. And while Mayor Adams can say that he's had some success in reducing some crimes, especially shootings, there's a lot of other crimes like assault on the subway that has been resistant to change. And especially lately, when we've seen a woman set on fire, another person pushed under the subway trains, I wonder, what would you do to try to stop that? Does it have to do with mental health programs?
It has a lot to do with mental health programs. It has a lot to do with upskilling our EMS and EMT workers in order to work with our police officers to truly address these situations. I mean, those tragedies have been heartbreaking. I say that as a woman myself, and especially as a mother to middle school children who are taking the subway by themselves.
You take the subway.
I do. I don't have a driver's license.
I know that. Do you change the way you get on the subway because of these crimes? Do you stand back from the edge of the track? Are you concerned about violence when you take the subway?
I mean, I think that, like any New Yorker, I'm always aware of my surroundings wherever I am. That's the way I, grew up in New York City back in the 80s. So we come from a time, I think, that was truly much more dangerous. But today, yeah, I absolutely, especially if it's late at night and I'm coming home from an event or I'm even waiting at a bus stop. But this is why what I want to see is people who are severely mentally ill very well taken care of, making sure that they are out of harm's way so that they don't harm any other New Yorkers or they don't harm themselves.
So what do we need? Do we need more clinics, more courts, more workers?
We need to undo the harm that former Governor Cuomo did in closing down our mental health facilities. A lot of those facilities...
About Mario Cuomo or Andrew Cuomo?
Andrew Cuomo. A lot of those facilities are still there and can be refurbished, reopened, restaffed so that there are the psychiatric beds that we need in order for people to get the mid to very long-term care that they might need, because it's not okay to leave people who are severely mentally ill out in the street. And then at the same time, we need to equip our hospitals so that everyone can access mental health care in the short term. But we need to be proactive in these measures, and it's going to take a lot of interagency effort on behalf of City Hall in order to achieve the wellness that we need.
But some of these programs are going to end up costing billions of dollars. Where will the money come from?
Well, the money comes from the taxes that we are already paying. Remember, the city can't levy its own taxes. We're going to have to ask Albany for some help. But at the same time, we do have money in the city that's being mismanaged and misappropriated. So we can figure out how to make sure that when we're talking about housing, we're also including supportive housing units that are needed for the mentally ill.
So I need to talk to you about two things, because you are also a state senator and you have to go back to Albany in the next few weeks. So here's the question. Both the mayor and the governor have tax proposals that would reduce taxes. The mayor wants to reduce taxes for the lowest rung people. He calls it AXA tax. And the governor wants to give middle-class people a tax rebate of between $300 and $500. Do either of these plans have any hope of passing in Albany, and would you vote for them?
I would be very supportive of plans to reduce taxes on the backbone of our economy, which is the working and middle class in New York City. But of course, tax breaks are not free. And for a long time, we've been giving tax breaks to the 1%, to the richest New Yorkers. And, we actually have more billionaires this year than we had just several months ago in New York State, who are largely going untaxed. I actually have an unrealized capital gains tax that I have been promoting in the state Senate for the past few years, which would help us generate $25 billion in its first year. And this is just taxing 139 people. Not you, not me, not our millionaires.
Aren't you afraid that they would leave?
I am not afraid that they would leave, because if they're New Yorkers, they like being in New York, and we know this. Who is leaving is the middle class. I see a lot of my peers finally, doing well in their careers. They finally have enough money to buy a house, but they can't afford to do that here in New York. They end up buying their house in Pennsylvania, in New Jersey. We don't want that. We want to keep our families in New York.
We're going to have to leave it right there for now. But up next, former Congressman Anthony Weiner considering re-entering public life. When Anthony Weiner was 27 years old, he was elected to the city council, then the youngest person to serve. Now he's 60. There's been a lot of water under the bridge, and he's thinking of running for the council again. So I have to ask you this question. You've carved out a nice life for yourself.
Sure.
You have a wonderful radio show. People turn in. You're a respected pundit. Why do this?
I get that question a lot. Like, what are you thinking? I mean, look, for years, and I've been a civilian for a while, I ran a countertop company out in the Brooklyn Navy Yard. I'm on the radio on 77 WABC. And like you said, I've got a great deal of blessings. And I did this for a very long time. You pointed out somewhat embarrassingly that you and I have been doing this for decades now.
We have.
But I have to tell you, I really do think that our city has lost its way a little bit. Not in the sense that it's on fire like it was in the 70s, or that it's unsafe like it was maybe in the 90s. But there is a sense among my neighbors, and I share this sense, that we just aren't solving problems anymore. That, you know, it used to be that if you went to the city council, or you were the mayor, you didn't always get everything right, but at least you got the sense that people recognize we have the problems, whether it be the illegal pot shops or the chronic problem of the same homeless people that are on our streets, that we know them, we know their names, we probably, you know, we walk by them every single day, and we find it mysterious that we can't solve these problems. And for someone like me who grew up in New York, you know, we have this ethos of we get better generation by generation, year by year, and I feel that we're stagnating now. And I'll tell you what.
But why is that? I mean, why is the mayor and the city council unable to say, these are our common problems, let's find a common solution?
I have a theory about that. I think that we are very good as Democrats of coming up with ideas to solve problems. But once we do, we are not very good about making sure they're working. The idea, like take the pot shops, for example. The idea of decriminalizing marijuana was right. People going to prison for small amounts of marijuana was right. But then we set up a system where we have illegal shops everywhere, people smoking in the park, people smoking on the corner. The legal guys can't survive. We created that problem. It wasn't some power on high. It wasn't Republicans. And yet,
so how do you fix it?
Oh, that's relatively easy. We never should have taken the NYPD out of the job of enforcing those rules. We gave it to this cannabis authority in Albany, who of course we're not going to be able to do it. When it comes to the people who are the chronic homeless, who have disabilities, you know, listen, we have to return our relationship to common spaces to realize that it's for the rest of us also. And no progressive I know likes the idea that there are people who aren't paying to get on the bus. They're sleeping on five seats. It's not safe. Well, maybe not safe. It's not orderly.
So what should the city do? If you were elected in the city council, what ideas would you propose to fix these problems?
Well, it's funny. I have a website now, anthonyweiner.com, where I have 25 ideas for 2025. As you know, that's my thing. I start every effort with a whole bunch of new ideas. I had 2 books of ideas when I ran for mayor. Look, here are a couple of things. One, the conversation needs to be about not only having more police on the beat, which I think we should, although it's preposterous to me that even the city council wouldn't even consider that idea, but get them out of their cars. Put them walking the beat again, and not just standing in front of a target like there is in my neighborhood. Get them walking around the block. Get them out of the RMPs, racing from place to place. Put them on a bike. When it comes to the chronic homeless, listen, people who have mental issues, getting them off the streets is a relatively easy problem. However, keeping them someplace that they can take care of themselves is very hard.
More supportive housing?
More supportive housing, but it also, we're using Creedmoor now to develop out in Queens, out close to where I used to represent. We have facilities there for people with mental challenges, and rather than
reopen them,
rather than develop it as housing that a lot of people don't even want there, let's expand our ability. But here's something else we have to do. Those people have certain rights, but so do we as the public. These people are unable to take care of themselves. And when me and my neighbors walk by the same couple of people, there's one guy who's in front of Dunkin' Donuts every morning on Avenue B and 14th Street. I know him. I say hello to him. He is not able to take care of himself. It's our job to return that sidewalk.
So are you saying that you would take people off the streets against their will?
Here's what I do. We should change the law that says right now the only way they can be held is if they are an imminent threat to do harm to themselves to others. Well, very few judges find that, okay? There is a category we should add to that. If they're unable to participate in their own care, then we should be able to hold them. If they can't take care of themselves.
Is that a state law that you'd have to change?
We'd have to change. A lot of these are state laws. A lot of these are, and by the way, that's one of the things I will constantly chafe at. I want Albany out of our life more. And one of the things they can do is, if they can't solve these problems, they should turn it over to those of us in the city level.
So in terms of crime, in addition to having more cops on the beat, one of the things that seems to have been unsolvable has been subway crime. You know, we've seen a woman set on fire, we've seen somebody pushed under the subway. How do you fix that?
Well, you know, the problem we have, we have this argument that's almost pointless that goes on where the mayor talks about, well, crime is down because some categories of crimes are down, murders are up, but look, for the most part, I believe that we're a safe city, but we're a disorderly city. You know, the idea that, when you are a tax-paying, progressive person, liberal in every sense of the word, and I sponsored single-payer health care when I was in Congress, I'm frustrated when I see people not paying the fare. I'm frustrated when I see people sleeping on the subway. I think we have to realize, and this is where we're failing as a city. There's no progressive value in the world that says it's okay to be taking up public spaces by sleeping in them.
So let's talk about the elephant in the room. So people are going to talk about the fact that you have had a sexting scandal in your past. What are you going to say to your opponents during a debate when they raise that?
Well, look, I'm going to meet people where they are, and if someone wants to have a good faith conversation with me about my history, about my struggles with addiction, about my interactions with law enforcement, I'm going to take responsibility for the things I did. I'm not going to take responsibility for things I did not do. But I do find it interesting that, by and large, citizens, when they talk to me on the street and when I go to present things to them in the community, they want to talk about themselves and their issues, not mine. But if it comes up, I'll meet them wherever it is. I do think it's somewhat ironic that I hear my erstwhile opponents, I'm not sure if I'm going to run yet, talking about how they're criminal justice reformers, criminal justice reformers, except when it comes to me. I'm someone who accepted responsibility, did my time. So I'm prepared to say, if people think I should just go away and never return to public life again, I'm sorry about that. However, if people want to ask me the specifics of what happened, what I did and did not do, I'll be glad to meet them where they are.
I do want to talk to you about one criminal justice issue, Rikers Island, which is supposed by City Council law to close in 2027, but the local jails haven't been built yet and may not be built in time. What should be done? Should the City Council change that and extend it?
Well, here's the problem. The problem is the slow walk that we've had on this thing means that the original proposal is arguably dead, in that the cost...
Except that there's still a law that says 2027.
Right, but the costs have gone up by 45%.
Yes, it has.
The situation in our city has changed somewhat. I'm open to the idea of putting jails closer to where citizens are in the city. I'm not opposed to the notion.
But can we do it by 2027?
But right now, well, we definitely can't do it by 2027. The mayor has succeeded in both going along and not going along at the same time for the last 4 years. Maybe that's because he doesn't like the original proposal. But this is one of the problems that we have in the current city council. The current city council is not really where ideas go to get solved as much as it used to be. Maybe not at all. Maybe I'm being too generous. But they're not an effective counterweight to the mayor. And if we have Eric Adams, Cuomo, you've had just about every candidate, you're going to have them all on. Whoever it is, you want a strong city council. And I think, as someone, I used to be there, I know what it takes to do that job. That place needs a giant tune-up.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it right there for now, but our conversations continue right after the show on our streaming channel, CBS News New York. Thank you for joining me. We're days away from the changing of the guard in Washington. Can Trump 2.0 unite the country? New Yorkers are weighing in on your point. What does America first mean to you?
Stability, safety.
I think it means manufacturing in the United States.
Nothing good.
What does America first mean? Does America first mean tariffs that are going to ruin the economy?
The Bund meeting in the 1930s.
Putting American jobs and industry before others.
Does America first mean privileges for white people that other races aren't extended?
It means taking care of our country and making sure everybody has a living wage and health care.
America first? Well, honestly, the people. The people come first. Nothing else. No politician before the people. That's what I would say.
I came in America 50 years ago. America is
always first. He was always first.
Is it always first now?
I don't think so.
Do you think that the slogan can bring this country together?
No,
Yes, I think so. Possibly, yeah.
I don't know. I think it's been tainted.
Unfortunately, it depends on who's interpreting it.
America is different things to a lot of people. And first means singularity, and that's not what we are.
Not just a slogan. Got to be more than words. It has to be action.
Do you think Donald Trump can unite the country?
Yeah, honestly.
Is that a serious question?
Never.
Why?
He's a racist. End of story.
Absolutely not. His whole MO is predicated on divisiveness.
Well, he's made no effort, so I can't imagine.
Donald Trump is only for himself.
I think anybody's capable of uniting the country. It's everybody else that has to come together, not just the president.
Do you think there's something he could do that would bring the country together?
Fundamentally change who he is.
Step down.
Do you think he's going to do that?
No, but it's a thought.
I think he could give everybody free health care, and I think he could give everybody a living wage.
Do you think he would do that?
No.
Wow. That's a great question. Okay, this is my wish, that he calms down, stops going after his enemies, and if he wants to pursue his agenda for what he thinks is good for the economy and the country, great. He's got to stop the hate.
Do you think he can do that?
Oh, absolutely not.